Welcome to CompTIA A Private Limited, e-learning program of hardware and networking. We are going to see about computer architecture in this topic. So here we'll discuss more about the architecture of a computer, how it is brought in, and what are the main components available in the computers, and the overall types of devices available. On the outer layer, we'll just see it. And we'll have detailed discussions about motherboard, processor, hard disk, input and output devices on a separate topic, but this architecture will be discussing about overall parts of a computer. So a computer is a machine designed to process, store and retrieve data. So that is a normal usage what we see in day-to-day life. So we use computers for our office purpose or home purpose, mainly for uploading the data and working on presentations and saving the photos, videos, working in social medias and checking the internet. So all those things are happening with the help of computers, right? So we are using the computers for our day-to-day life. It has become very important and crucial device in the day-to-day life, especially for students and college students or school students. They mainly use desktops and laptops in home, in colleges also, in the computer lab. And apart from that, elders also, they use desktop or laptop in home after coming out from office. So this has become mandatory for all the people to have PC in a home. So in computers, all the data are stored as a binary digits. So we cannot see it in the hard disk, but it will be retrieved from the hard disk and it will be displayed in the monitor for ready reference. So the term PC is personal computer. It is published by IBM in the earlier days. So normally we mention it as a desktop, but in IBM state they mention it as a PC. So Mac, it's a different operating system apart from the Windows. It's a kind of unique operating system. So they call it as Apple Mac or Mac PC. So a computer is a machine designed to process, store and retrieve data. So you can store the data as well as retrieve anytime whenever it is required. So data may be in the spreadsheets or Word document or PPTs or a kind of design. So anything it can be, but we can retrieve the data from the hard disk by choosing the file. We can open the file and copy the data to the CD-ROM or USB pen drives. So all the data will be available as numbers, but when it is displayed to the users in a presentation layer, it will be visible as letters or pictures, but inside it will be of complete digits. So everything the computer does, from web browsing to printing, involves moving and processing numbers. The electronics of computer is nothing more than a system designed to hold, move and change the numbers. So here everything will be dealt with the numbers. Whatever you are seeing as a character or a picture, in the back end it will be stored as a numbers, zeros and ones. So computer system is composed of many parts, so both hardware and software. So it requires a hardware as well as software to function as a computer. Only with hardware or only with software it cannot function. Both the things to join together and work as a computer. So CPU or the processor is the heart of the computer, and it is main for running the computer as such, and it is helping the computer to process the input and receive the input and process it and sends to the output. So these are all very basic informations what we are discussing. The computer is also has a device for storing the data, which is nothing but your hard disk or any other storage media. So temporarily or permanently can store the data into the system, and you will be able to retrieve the data at any point in time. Computer software. So software controls the operation and functionality of the computer. So hardware is a physical component what you can see, but software you cannot see it. So it will be available inside the computer. So we have different types of software available. The lowest version will be a firmware, which is mentioned in the picture. So firmware is nothing but it is also a kind of software, but it is available for ready reference in the booting time. So whenever a system is getting booting up, so it will be referring this particular firmware and understands the number of devices available and what is required to proceed as a next step during the booting time. So this recognizes all the hardware and informs the operating system to provide the required driver software for the particular hardware. So this will have minimum set of hardwares to make the device to work. So that is the firmware. Bootloader. So bootloader is part of firmware. It is available in the chip, in the form of chip. The bootloader is a special program run by the process that reads the operating system from disk. So it will be loading the operating system from the disk and publish it to the output device, that is monitor. So bootloader is present in desktop computers and workstations as well as in laptops. And also this is available in the small mission based systems, robots or cars. So they are also using this kind of bootloader. Application software, which consists of the programs that provide the functionality of the computer. So based on the application, we call it as a type of system. Like web applications are available, we call it as a web server. We use the FTP service for uploading and downloading files, we call it as FTP server. So based on the type of application what we are using, the names are getting changed. Processor is the most important part of a computer. This acts as a heart to a computer. So if it is working good, the entire system will be working good. So and the processor is an electronic device capable of manipulating the data in a way specified by a sequence of instructions. So processor processes the information and keep it ready for circulation with the other level of access. So sequence of instructions, what constitutes a program? Instructions in a computer are numbers, just like data. Different numbers when read and executed by the processor causes different things to happen. So based on the instructions it is receiving, it reacts to the user program and ensures the required output is generated from the processor. So system architecture, how it looks like. See, only with processor you cannot work, right? I have only brain. With that, can I do something required for me? Can I drink water? Can I go and have some break? Nothing possible, right? So likewise, the processor alone cannot define the speed of a computer or function of a computer. So this becomes a core. The processor becomes the core of the computer. So it requires memory to store the data. It requires I/O devices to receive the input as well as to send the output. And it requires a monitor to send the display as out. So output device. So this is the overall system architecture. Microprocessor and microcontroller. So microprocessor is a single device implemented as a single device, integrated circuit. Common microprocessors what we use is from IBM or Intel, Pentium or MIPS or ARM, and then Sun has released as a software as a Spark, Sun Spark. So these are all the normal microprocessor available, which is used for functioning of the computer. So this is the normal microprocessor, whereas we have microcontroller. So what is the difference between microprocessor and controller? So it is nothing but microprocessor is performing the required operations, whereas microcontroller has processor, memory and some of the I/O devices contained with the single integrated circuit. So it will be a single circuit, but it has both processor, memory and other I/O circuits connected together. So it saves time, and it will be mostly used in the machineries and other smaller computing devices where processor usage is restricted or avoided. So with this we'll be able to use it in a more number of in the computers, whereas to have Microsoft operating system and other applications running, we should suggest to have microprocessor. Arithmetic logic unit. So this arithmetic logic unit performs the internal arithmetic manipulation of data in the processor. So this performs the calculation and produces the result to the computer. RISC and CISC. So if you take the processor, they broadly classify it as a RISC and CISC. So RISC stands for Reduced Instruction Set Computer. To execute each instruction, if there is a separate economic circuit in the control unit which produces all the necessary signals, this approach or this design of the construction section of the processor is called as RISC design. So this will be having a separate section. So it will not have a bigger instructions or bigger coding loops. So based on the requirement, it will perform the required operation, and it is written in the processor in a less easier manner. So here the workload is getting reduced for the processor, but the number of instructions are adding more. So normal processor available we have seen just now. So DEC Alpha designed the design the processor like Alpha 21064, 21164 and 21264 processors. So these are all the Alpha processors, RISC family. Features: RISC processor uses a small and limited number of instructions. So this will not go with the general one. So it will be using only limited number of applications, instructions. RISC machines mostly uses hardware control unit. The processor consumes less power and having high performance. So RISC processor uses a simple addressing system, not like complicated addressing system like our Windows. So it will be very easy addressing system. RISC processor uses simple addressing modes, and RISC instructions is of uniform fixed length. So it will be same across all the characters. It will not have different sizes. So normally we have RISC processor as well as CISC processor. So let us see about CISC processor. CISC stands for Complex Instruction Set Computer. So the name implies that the system is not much easy like what we are seeing. So it is having a complex instruction set. The control unit contains a memory number of microelectronic circuitry to generate a set of control signals, and each microcircuitry is activated by a microcode. This design approach is called a CISC design. So example of CISC processors are our processor like 386, 486, Pentium Pro, Pentium 2, Pentium 3, Motorola, different series. So features of CISC processors are: CISC chips have a large amount of different and complex instructions. So it has the benefit of having complex instruction. CISC machines are generally make use of complex addressing systems, and the different mission programs can be executed on a CISC machine. So different types of program can be executed, and CISC machines uses microprogram to control it. So this will be controlled by a microprogram. Processors are having limited number of registers. So we cannot go for the previous model because each processor has limitation on the port numbers. Digital signal processing. So it is shortly called as DSP, digital signal processor. These processors have instruction sets and architectures optimized for numerical processing of array data. This allows the concurrent instruction fetch and data access for multiple operands. So parallel access is made possible with this kind of inventions in the system. So DSPs can have very high throughput and operate both CISC and RISC processors in certain applications. So RISC has different capability and CISC has different capability, and now we have to choose which we have to use in our PC. DSPs have special hardware well suited to numerical processing anyway. Arrays, they often have human hardware looping, where we special registers allow for and control the repeat execution of the instruction set. So it is called hardware looping because special registers allow for and control the repeated execution of the instruction set. So the loop is getting formed within the hardware. This is kind of called as known as zero head looping. It is called as a zero head looping since no conditions need to be explicitly tested by the software as part of the looping process. So DSP processors are commonly used in embedded applications and many conventional embedded microcontrollers to include some DSP functionality. So DSP processors are mainly used for measurement accurately and provide the result in a quick manner. RAM is the random access memory which is used for storing the data. This is again a volatile memory. This means that any data stored in the RAM will be powered off or flushed if the system is logged off. So normally we always recommend to save the data into the hard disk or system so that even if there is a power failure, we still will be able to access the RAM storage for the data. Okay, and it is known as a volatile storage. Why it is called volatile is if any data is available in the chip and power goes off, the data will be turned off. So we will not be able to recover the data. So we have to go for keeping the power source. At least for RAM itself, we wanted to use the data for some more time, then we have to have some power option available and enabled always connected to the RAM module so that the data will be stored on the capacitor based IC chips. So RAM generally fall into two categories: static RAM and dynamic RAM. Two types of RAM, one is static RAM, other is a dynamic RAM. So static RAM, it is used or manufactured by using a pair of logic gates to store a bit of data. So static RAM is faster than the dynamic RAM because it processes faster and it can serve the processor or the components quickly. The main drawback is the capacity is considerably less than DRAM. So we can have 128 GB for DRAM, but we cannot have that much space like 2 GB, 3 GB only for static RAM because of the design constructions. So it is also expensive compared to other RAM because of the logic gates what we use for storing the data. So next is the DRAM. It uses arrays of water, essentially capacitors, to hold individual bits of data. There the earlier one is using the logic gates and this one is using the capacitor for charging and discharging. So if it is charging, it will have some impression that will be treated by them as a zeros. So by using that charging and discharging, the DRAM's data will be restored. So next one is a ROM, a read-only memory. So this name directly says that we can read the content, but we cannot modify the content as such. Okay, so for blocking the read options, we have some restrictions. So what we can do is, we have different types of ROM available, read-only memory available. Some machineries will have some standard instructions. There is no changes required frequently. So what we can do, we can write the program into the machine and connect it to the machine. So it will run continuously or 12 hours or 24 hours. So it will go for writing the data into it. Or we have to get the program and write the program using a ROM burner. So it is called as ROM burner. So using which we can burn the program into the chip. So we'll define it what is the program required and verify it. Later we'll upload the data or burn the program to the chip. So this is the ROM, read-only memory. So because of this, it is also known as in-system programming, or sometimes it is called as in-circuit programming, ISP or ICP. PROM, so programmable read-only memory, not like ROM, it is a one-time access. We cannot rewrite the data. We have to throw it if there is wastage of ROM modules. In case of PROM, it is programmable read-only memory. So we can do the programming. We can mask the programmable ROMs are also one-time programmable. They are burned by the chip manufacturer prior to the shipping. They are used once the software is known to be stable and have the advantage of lowering production costs for large shipments. So some kind of machines will require some program which has to run without having any modifications. For that, they will be using this kind of ROMs. So here we are programming or modifying the ROM, even if they are asking different kind of information. So next is EPROM, erasable programmable read-only memory. So this does like erasing the old information in the chip and writing the new information in the chip. So that will be done, and this is the PROM is somewhat moderate speed, whereas EPROM, so it will be faster in reading compared to the previous ROMs, and most of the cases we use EEPROM in our day-to-day life, whether it is for machinery or for any other indications, notifications to be sent, we'll be using EEPROM. So we can erase it and then program it and make it as a read-only memory. So wherever we want to have one-time access or this thing restricted access, we'll go for using the EEPROM. Electrically erasable read-only memory. So now we have separate kits also available where we can ourselves erase the data by passing on the electrical signals, and because of which this has helped many of them to write the program and update the details. So this is helping a lot for storing the data wherever you want to store the data, but you don't have battery backup. So very well you can use this particular ROM. So this is electrically erasable read-only memory. So normally in case of machineries, microcontrollers, they will use this kind of chips inside the machinery so that they get the performance as expected. Flash memory is the newest ROM technology and is now dominant. When the BIOS is called as a flash BIOS or flash memory, it has the reprogrammability of EEPROM, advanced form of EEPROM only, so that is nothing different. Flash chips are sometimes referred to as flash ROMs or flash RAMs. So flash is normally organized as sectors and has the advantage that individual sectors may be erased and rewritten without affecting the contents of rest of the device. So the advantage of flash is you need not rewrite from the scratch, whereas you can do whatever it is additionally added. So that is the advantage of two different technology available in the flash memory. Input devices, we have a lot of input devices available in the current technology, like keyboards, scanners, barcode readers, joysticks, etc. Output devices, wherever we see the output of a computer, we call it as a output devices. System bus, set of connectors used for carrying a signals between the different parts of computer, known as a bus. Bus means always carries a signal, and based on the type of data it carries, we can call it as address bus or a data bus. If it carries only the address, then it will be called as address bus. If it carries data, then it will be called as a data bus. Storage devices, we have different types of storage devices available: magnetic storage device and optical storage devices, like magnetic tape, floppy disk, hard disk and all. It is purely magnetic. Following are the optical storage devices. The storage device in the form of disk or tape are used to store programs and data that are not being used. So you can use a storage device for moving the data from hard disk to the pen drive and carry over to other places to ensure that data is available. So before a program or data can be used, it must be transferred from the storage device to the main RAM memory. So any program you are just publishing, it will be moved to the RAM, and then only it will be moved to the particular devices. Storage devices, you have hard disk, which is used for storing the data. Floppy disk and drive, we are not at all using now. So any computer you buy, you get only hard disk. So it is a magnetic device. It will be covered under the vacuum circumferences, and this will be writing the data using the needle. It will be writing the data into the tracks and sectors. So disk will be rotating. It will be rotating at a higher speed, and the head will be writing the data into the hard disk surface. So the server computers, normally for desktop computers or residential computer, only one hard disk is sufficient. Still, some of the people wanted to store more data, they will go for using the multiple hard disk or capacity based. So in servers now we will be having a different term called RAID, redundant array of inexpensive disk. So we'll be using a RAID controller, but not for your desktop computers. Okay, it will not support, but it will support with the specific interface card. You should add RAID interface card. Normally in normal desktop and motherboard, that will not come. Okay, so if at all it is required, so you have to add that interface, or you go for a server end computer and buy it and use it for your own requirement, but that is not at all required. So what we can do is we can use RAID only for server computers. It will have more data transfer rate and application support. So computer specifications, what we have to do, suppose if at all I am going and purchasing a computer, I should be specifying all these parameters. This is very important, because of while purchasing, what is required, what is not required, or what is the importance we have to give, so we can understand from this particular topic. So when you are choosing the processor, it will be mentioned in megahertz or gigahertz. So now the market has speed like 1.2 gigahertz. So okay, we had megahertz, but it is gigahertz now. Memory speed, it will be measured in GBs, like 64 GB, 128 GB, like that. And the frequency speed also mentioned here. So sometimes the frequency may differ. So while buying the additional memory modules, what we have to do, we have to open the system and find out what is the memory module available and see the frequency. If the frequency is different, 200 or 200 and more than that, and the current frequency is 166, then it will not match. Sometimes the machine will go for hanging or operating system collapse. So we should be very careful in buying the memory modules. Hard disk capacity, yeah, starting from a lowest level like 4 GB, 400 MB, or now we got higher capacity of hard disk. Now we go for terabyte also. 2 terabyte hard disk is available for latest computers. But the earlier one we had GBs, 2 GB, 4 GB and all, we had it. So hard disk capacity is mentioned in the GBs. The latest laptops are coming with 2 terabyte hard disk for storing more data. And we have optical storage device mentioned in 24x speed. We have external storage device also, because normally laptops will not come with the CD-ROM to reduce the size as well as reduce the thickness. So what we can do is we can buy the external CD-ROM player and connect it with the laptop as a USB connector. So display monitor size, we have to see, we have to measure in the diagonal front and see whether it is 19 inch or 21, 22, 23.5 or 26. So we have to see the width. The standard widths are available, so we have to go and buy the standard widths of the monitor. And normally all the monitors will be supported by operating system. And earlier we had restrictions like resolution not supported, but now with all the latest technology, it supports all the resolution. The graphic card memory size. So to avoid the overloading of processor and memory of the motherboard, so we'll be having a small processor and motherboard, small processor and memory in the graphic memory card, so that for any graphic utilization it will be processed via the graphic card itself. It will not utilize the resources from your motherboard. So that way we ensure that we have improved the performance of the system. Modem speed, we are not using modems now, but otherwise we had 512 kbps modem or 1 mbps modem. Now with the help of fiber optic cable connections, everybody is using 100 mbps router, not the modem. Numbering system, bits and bytes, we'll be using, mostly we'll be using this for calculation purpose and understanding the size of the data. So types of computer based on power, the output efficiency, we call it as a supercomputer, mainframe computer, and somewhat less we call it as a mini computer, and for residential purpose we use a power computer, personal computer. So it is based on the delivery model or usage pattern. So in the personal computers we have desktop computers, workstation and portable. So we can have different types of personal computers in our residence purpose. So in the portable device we have laptop, notepad, handheld. So laptop you all know, so notepad, notebook or handheld, it will be like a mobile phone, Samsung Note or Galaxy Note, we have devices like that. So we can configure that for mails, and we can carry over the device and check all the details in the device itself. Handheld device, pen based PDA, so stylus pen will be provided along with the device, so you can write it and store it. Otherwise without a pen also we can use the devices PDA. So types of computer based on real-time exposure. So if at all you go and buy the computer, or you want to understand what is the computer made up of, or how to measure like whether it is good or not, so we have to take this as a basic parameter. So we have to see what is the speed of the processor, memory, right, and what is the capacity of the hard disk, capacity of memory, whether all the things will be supporting the existing things or not, and cost of the devices and energy consumption of the devices, because we are going to consume it for long hours. So how much power a system will take, so those things we have to measure, and based on all the results only we will say whether the computer is recommended for purchase or not. Normally we will get the recommendation or suggestions from the project site to mention the requirement and all. So we measure all these things and say, but this is the good computer or a normal computer, so we can go for it or don't go for it. So those kind of decisions we can take by seeing the specifications like this. Yeah, so this is about the computer architecture. We have come to the end of the topic. So if there is any doubts or clarification required, please reach out to the support mail ID. So we'll be able to provide a clarification and support. Thank you very much.